One of the things that was really interesting to me, Mason, when I left the church and I first started to try alcohol was your paralyzing fear. And I'm going to call it a paralyzing fear. You really, really struggled. Do you want to talk about that? And again, I got his permission to talk about it before the podcast. I'm just opening it up now.
Well, I wouldn't say that it was paralyzing for me. I'm not going to say it didn't feel that way to you, of course, but I don't think it was paralyzing, but there was absolutely fear involved. And some of it was, I still hadn't really come to terms with the fact that you were leaving the church. And I was still very much caught up in the grief cycle, denial, things like that. And so if I wasn't in that situation, I imagine I would have handled this better than I did. But that was part of my experience. I was in denial. And so every time you did something like that, it was just one more witness to the fact that you have gone over the edge, right? Which I wouldn't call it that now, although in metaphorically, there's some truth to that kind of thing, right? But because I was still stuck in that grief stage, everything was just another insult to this thing I didn't want to have happen. I was in complete denial that this was going to happen, or just hoping that this was just a stage and you were going to move past this and we were going to be okay. And so it wasn't paralyzing for me, or at least the alcohol wasn't paralyzing to me. The alcohol was just a symbol of everything else that was going on. So even now, like you say sometimes you feel like I'm still kind of looking at you funny, and I don't mean to. Like I'm comfortable with what you do, but I'm also still going through that process a little bit. There's still it's been a couple of years, but there's still some of that grief.
There's still that shadow when meaning that even though I've wrapped my head in academically, I'm okay and it doesn't bother me. There's still that initial response. There's still that little bit of discomfort at times that'll come across. And that's one of those things that we call the shadow of Mormonism,
right.
Or shadow work is, just because I'm okay with it now doesn't mean that I don't. Sometimes it's
right.
We see that across all things.
And when it comes to your alcohol use, you have not demonstrated anything to me that is uncomfortable. Like I'm not concerned about you becoming a drunkard or getting drunk or being in a situation where our kids are no longer safe anymore or driving. I don't have any of those concerns because you've demonstrated very much a responsible use of this quote unquote substance. It's been a responsible thing for you. And so right. I don't have any of those concerns.
Well, and I would say when I first started drinking, a lot of your fear, because when we talked about it, you were like, I'm just so afraid that you're going to become an alcoholic. And I was kind of like, okay, where is that fear coming from? And it wasn't really based in reality. And a lot of that, I think, is because Mormons will look at the alcohol as this big, bad, evil thing. And then their analogies tend to be drunk driving, horrible accidents, cirrhosis of the liver. It's bad. It's these extremes. And you're never exposed to adults who have healthy drinking habits.
Because that doesn't exist in the Mormon world. There's no such thing as healthy drinking habits.
Right. And I mean, as an example, one of your family members posted something recently, again on Facebook, about any alcohol going into your body at all. Any of it is a carcinogenic. It's terrible for you. It's bad for you. And that this one thing that somebody said debunks all of the 1 or 2 glasses of wine with dinner can be really healthy and good antioxidants and blah, 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 blah. And for me, I'm going, when we look at things that black and white, that this is so horrible for you, even one drop of it in your body is bad for you. That for me, I'm like, that's a confirmation bias of your Mormon beliefs, because from your Mormon standpoint, alcohol is a no-go. That one's pretty darn clear, which is still funny to me because Joseph Smith got the revelation and continued to drink and continued to own a bar where alcohol was served after getting this word of wisdom revelation, which we'll unpack a little bit more in our upcoming episode with Ian. Yep. But, I don't think most members knew that until recently. And I would say most still don't know that Joseph Smith got the revelation on the word of wisdom and continued to drink. Like they know about coffee, But I don't think they recognized that Joseph Smith owned a bar.
Right, because we all get the story that, Emma Smith was complaining about the mess, and so Joseph Smith got the revelation, and then we all get the idea that everything changed at that point in time, and it really didn't.
And it didn't. I mean, Joseph Smith was drinking the night he got shot. And I'm not saying he was a drunkard the night he got shot, but they'd ordered up some alcohol, and they were drinking it when they got mobbed.
Right.
That's like I think it's in the jailer's record or something. Like, we've got that written down. And so, yeah, I would say that modern Mormonism does not have exposure to healthy drinking habits. And so I think that fear, Mason, of, oh my goodness, Sarah's drinking alcohol, she's going to become this alcoholic, blah, 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 was real. And I remember when I brought some hooch from Harmy's cheese store to my sister. Okay, so we've got this little touristy Harmy's cheese store. They sell all kinds of cheeses, and then they have their own blackberry moonshine and whatnot. And they make a delicious lemonade out of it. And so I bought some of that, and I took it to Arizona with me so that my sister and I could drink and bitch together. We were like, okay, we're just gonna like drink a glass or two and whine about life. And we were gonna whine with our wine, is what we said. We were really excited about it. And I think I had 2 drinks. She had 2 drinks. Neither of us were anywhere near being drunk. Neither of us were near being tipsy. We ended up laughing more than whining through this thing. But because the alcohol bothered my mom so much, my mom was visibly upset. Like, you could tell, not mad, but like sadness had consumed her. And I think a lot of that is my grandpa struggled with alcoholism for a long time, and he's been sober for years, but he didn't get sober until my mom was a teenager. And my grandmother's father was also an alcoholic. Pop was an alcoholic and drank. I mean, the man chugged his alcohol until the day that he passed away, and was probably somewhat inebriated when he killed himself. So my grandfather died of suicide, and
so there's lots of
trauma there for my mom, right?
That are swallowed up in a lot of not real fears.
But what was really interesting to me is I'm looking around, going, my kids are in bed, my husband knows where I am. I'm at home. I was at my parents' house. I'm not driving anywhere. I'm not doing, like, my sister's a responsible drinker as well. Like, we're not getting 3 sheets to the wind here. Where is this coming from? And again, it's that fear of that is ingrained in a lot of religious cultures. This is not exclusive to Mormonism, of if you try the substance once, you'll be hooked and you'll be an addict forever.
Yeah, well, and I'm going to harken back to what I said at the beginning, is that I'm not sure that Mormons as an organization are as concerned with you losing control as they are with you losing your soul. Like, any venture into anything that is forbidden, now your soul is on the line, and there's no healthy look at, you know what? This is okay. This is gonna be okay, right? Even if you're an active member and you go out and you got drunk one night, okay, right? Like, or you had a drink of alcohol, not even going to the I got drunk, right? This is okay. Let's look at where we are. Are we in a healthy place? Are there things going on that maybe we're hiding from? Lots of people use alcohol to hide from things.
Oh yeah.
Is that what's going on? You know what? No,
well, and
I'm not hiding from anything. I'm okay.
I would say I think, I don't have it in front of me, but I think alcohol is considered the number one most damaging substance out there. It harms more families. People who are utilizing it end up making decisions that harm more families, harm themselves, that, harm long-term health. I know that fetal alcohol syndrome in infants is usually a lot more debilitating than
almost any
somebody
other drug
that's used any other drug.
Yep.
Right. So I'm not here to say alcohol is healthy, go have fun.
Right.
But I am saying, once again, this is personal until you cross into true overuse, abuse, or addiction. But healthy alcohol use is very personal. Like, for me, a glass of wine that I sip on while I make dinner makes me a much more pleasant person in the evening during the chaos of where's your homework, where's your shoes, do you need a shower, eat your dinner, brush your teeth, blah, blah, blah. Just that time of transition in our home. Times of transition in our home are always very stressful because we have so many special needs kids. And so when I drink a little bit of alcohol and it just kind of mellows me out, I'm a better mama. I am showing up better for my kids and my husband in the evening. But again, I'm within healthy limits for me, and I've never had an addiction problem to alcohol. If I was an alcoholic saying, I'm just going to have one drink of wine this evening, we know that that's not how addiction works.
Right.
And so if you've been an alcoholic, we don't want you drinking that one glass of wine. But if you have a healthy relationship with the substance, okay, and we're seeing things like marijuana. Is there addiction to marijuana? Hell yes, there absolutely is. But there's also medicinal use. There's also recreational use that can be within healthy limits and boundaries. Now, some of the other things, so Oxycontin, narcotics used medicinally versus abuse, overuse, there's lines, there's barriers, and we've got to be really honest with ourselves in order to understand, are we in a use, an overuse, an abuse, or an addiction place?
Yeah, well, and I think a lot of it comes back to, again, communication with yourself, communication with others. Like, why did your mom not just talk to you about this, right? Could she not have gone in and say, hey, I see you guys are getting ready to drink. What's going on? What's the plan? Oh, we're going to have a couple and we'll be fine. And then when you come out and you've had a couple and you're fine, there's this communication of, oh, you know what? That's fine. Or even to the point of, hey, this is my house. I don't want you to drink in my house.
Well, and we did. Mom,
right? You cleared that with her, right?
And she was like, no, that's fine. I don't want to see it. Which is why, great.
But there again, I don't want to see it, right? It's like it's almost like asking somebody to hide something from you, and that's not what we want. We want to be able to communicate about this.
Well, and I want to kind of reiterate something, Mason, that you sort of said but didn't say as clearly. So I just want to bring this up and say, yes, there needs to be that communication. Also, I need to trust my partner. Mason, if you came to me and you said, hey, Sarah, I'm noticing that you're drinking 3 or 4 glasses of wine and that without it, you're just unreasonable and you're a beast to these kids, or you're drinking so much wine that you end up just going to bed and falling asleep and leaving me with everything.
You're breaking our budget by how much wine you're drinking. Yeah.
If the people I trust are coming to me with concerns about that is actually one of the things that we test for. Like when I'm asking, do you feel like it's a problem? Do the people around you feel like it's a problem?
Right.
And again, that would be where that, hey, Mormon church, if we can establish healthy boundaries around the use of tea, the use of tobacco, the use of alcohol, the use of coffee,
everything on that list. Yeah.
Everything. When we talk about things in moderation, if all I ever ate was tomatoes would be a very unhealthy thing for me. That is
not
kill
you.
Right. I cannot survive on just tomatoes, and tomatoes are generally thought to be a healthy fruit or vegetable, depending on if you're going with the blossom idea or the root idea or whatever. But it's a healthy food for us, but not in excess.
Right.
And so as we're looking at these things, we really need to be able to identify use, overuse, abuse, addiction, and that number one, it's personal.
Yeah.
We need to get bishops and leaders out of that. If you're going to bring your higher power in, or if there's a religious moral value that you're considering as you are personally making decisions for you, great.
Right,
but when
no
we start to throw a blanket over that and say alcohol is bad for everybody, and if you drink it, you're risking addiction, okay, that's maybe a little bit extreme.
Right.
Because I would say the vast majority of adults who drink alcohol have a healthy relationship with it. I want to say, and I heard this on the radio the other day, I think it's 2 in 10 adults have an alcohol problem, which means 8 out of 10 adults do not.
Right.
And if we look at how many adults drink, it's more than 8 out of 10 adults drinking. So out of those 10, and yes, there are definitely adults in there that don't touch alcohol at all for whatever
but
reason.
Of the ones that are drinking,
and that's fine. And I think society needs to do a much better job of accepting and making room for those people that want their cocktails virgin or mocktails. Like, we need to create a healthy space for those individuals who don't drink as well. We need to see that too. But again, this is personal, and I would say individually personal. So just like the pornography, what are Sarah Westbrook's morals and standards around this? Now that I'm in a relationship with Mason, what are yours? Let's talk about each other's boundaries or morals and standards. Right. And now let's create
with
boundaries
room for movement and all that stuff.
And now let's create boundaries that we are comfortable with as a couple, and how are we going to support our children, and what are our children's, what are the boundaries for them when they're minors? What are the boundaries for them when they're adults? How do we do this? There needs to be a lot more nuance on this topic. So I hope that we've been able to kind of raise some awareness, kind of challenge a little bit of that, use equals addiction. It absolutely doesn't. And of course, there is no prophet or anybody that's come out and said use is addiction. I'm talking about a cultural phenomenon for those of you that have been inside of that culture.
Implied messages versus
implied
stated.
Perception. Those types of things. So hopefully we're able to raise awareness. Again, if you feel that you're having a struggle with addiction and you need somebody to reach out to, you are welcome to email me at daisycurlcommunications@gmail.com. I will be referring you or providing you with resources in our episode show notes. We're going to get some of the links for the addictions, the National Institute for Mental Health and addictions within that. So that way you have some of those links, programs, AA programs, NA programs, even the church's addictions. I'm sure there's a place for it. I'm sure it's worked for some people. I personally don't like it, but there's a lot of really good programs out there. If you need help, get help. If you are truly struggling with an abuse or an addiction, you're gonna need medical professionals on your side. You need medical professionals, you're gonna need mental health professionals, and usually more than one, and you're gonna need a group setting. We find that working through addictions in a group setting is much more effective than individual counseling alone. So there's a team of people there, and I don't do the addictions specifically. I do the mental health side and the relationship healing side of addictions in my work. That's kind of where my wheelhouse is there. So I would definitely want to refer you to people who can meet those needs.